going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It is product review time. We got something new from YES Welder. This is one of their plasma cutters. I love doing reviews on equipment. I try to give honest opinions, and YES Welder is a relatively new company competing with like Lincoln, Miller, Hobart, stuff like that. And this is one of their plasma cutters. This is the CUT-65DS. So you can find that on their website. I will put a link in the description below. First thing we're going to do is unbox this and see what it comes with. All right, let's see what we got in the box. First thing first, torch. Ground clamp. Looks like a regulator and a few cutting tips. Fittings, air water separator and regulator, adapter. So this will work 220 or 110. So here's an adapter if you're using it 220. Airline, and our plasma cutter. Very important instruction book. Bracket for the regulator. And an air pressure gauge. All right, so here's our unit. It's relatively small, very light. Should be nice and portable when it's all done. I have this cart right here that I'm going to put it on so I can roll it around the shop if I need to. So I'm going to get a quick glance of the instruction book and figure out how to set this all up. I'll be back with you guys in 1 second. All right, so now that I'm familiar with the instructions, I'm gonna go ahead and start making connections before we actually power this up. The first thing we have to do is set up our air pressure regulator. So you can see there's an arrow here that indicates flow, and this uses push lock fittings on the back of the machine and on the output side of the regulator, and then you'll have a regular air hose connection on the input side of the regulator. So I'm going to go ahead and thread some fittings in, and then we'll mount it with the bracket that's included. So we have our air in fitting, our gauge, air out fitting. Now we're going to mount this to the back of the machine. Now we're going to hook up a short piece of hose from the regulator to the machine. Pro tip, cut this with a razor blade. If you use side cutters or anything else, it actually won't cut it straight, and these need to be straight when you install them in the fittings. Okay, on the front of the machine, we're going to make some connections. First, we'll connect our torch lead and I'll snug all these in a second. Next we have our arc start lead. and our trigger lead. After that, we have our work clamp lead or our ground lead, which should just push in and twist. And that's all the connections we need to make on the front of the machine. Our torch head comes pre-assembled. Pretty nice, and it has a standoff on it, which I'm going to attempt to use. So since this machine uses an arc start, I should not have to touch this to start, but we'll see. The instructions don't really specify. And the standoff lead is going to keep you about 2 millimeters off your workspace. So when you're plasma cutting, you do not want the tip touching the material you're cutting. You want a little bit of a gap. So let's go ahead. I'm going to plug this into 220 because I have it available here at the shop. Like I said, it comes with this. This is actually a 220 adapter. Normally you just plug into 110. So I'm going to use the adapter, plug it into 220, turn the machine on, and start pushing some buttons. Now I'm not going to connect the air yet and perform the gas check. We're just going to turn the machine on and look at the front display panel. So what you can see on the front display panel is our input voltage, output amperage, and this should be adjustable up to 65 and down to 10 on our 220 volt setup. Now up here we have 2T and 4T mode, and my understanding is 2T, you pull the trigger and let off. You have to hold the trigger for use. In 4T mode, when you pull the trigger, the arc starts, you can let go and maneuver the cutting torch better, and when you touch the trigger again, it should shut off, but we'll check that. Here we have torch mode and gas check mode. Now, if we push this button, we can scroll through different menus as well. Let's talk about those real quick. Okay, what we have with this dial is currently setting up our cutting amperage. The first LED is going to be max pilot arc time. And that should be .20 seconds is our max, and they recommend 1.2 seconds as the minimum. Like so. Pilot arc current between 12 and 25 amps. So we'll start like 18. I is going to be our cutting current, so we're going to go up to about 40 to test. And post flow, so this is how long the air is going to flow after you let off the trigger to help cool the torch. We'll go 10 seconds. Now if you let it sit for a second, it's going to revert back to your cutting current. So that should be it. And that's about it for the front display. It also has a cover to keep weld spatter and such from getting in there, keep it clean. So this is how we're going to set up to start. So now I need to hook up the air and we'll do a gas flow test. Okay, here's where the confusion starts a little bit because the instructions aren't really clear, so let me see if I can clarify. Our regulator on the back, well, it's in millipascals. So we go from 0 to 1. Not really sure what that is in PSI. It's a little foreign to me. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set it up at 0.2 millipascals. And then this is included in the kit. It is a flow gauge. So air in there, air out there. And you can see there's like a BB in here. What we need to do is set up our air pressure so that the BB sits about in that red zone. So what we're going to do is switch this over to gas flow mode, and you'll hear the air start coming out of the torch. Okay, air's coming out of the torch. Now we will take our flow gauge and put it on the bottom of the torch. And you can see our BB is sitting right where it needs to be. Turn this back to cut mode. The air stops flowing. So, for those of you who are setting up this machine for the first time, this is about where I would recommend starting. Right there. For this video, this is what I'm going to be cutting. This is just a piece of scrap we have laying around the shop. It's 080 mild steel. So we are going to clamp this to the table, attach our ground clamp, and then we'll see what this little torch will do. With the settings that I already had in the machine, we're going to go ahead and try to make a cut and see what happens. Our post flow is going on right now. Just like I had it set up. Now, this is relatively thin metal. And as you can see on the back side, we've got some slag. So there's a couple ways to solve this. We can adjust our amperage, or we can turn up our air pressure. I'm going to adjust the amperage down a little bit and see if we get a better cut. My second cut, less slag. So this is also in 2T mode. So how it is working is you pull the trigger and have to hold it to cut. Let's try 4T mode. And it works just like I thought. You pull the trigger, and once the arc is initiated, you can let go of the trigger. And it will continue cutting until it either loses the arc or you pull the trigger again. I'm a 2T mode kind of guy, so let's see if we can make another cut. Okay, we're cutting at 30 amps. And you can see freehand, I'm not very good. On the bottom of this cut, we've got some more slag. So that could mean that I'm not moving fast enough also. So I'm gonna make another cut right next to it, moving faster, and see if we can clean up that slag. This second cut in, you can see less slag. You're always going to have a little bit, but moving faster definitely cleaned it up. So let's see if we can do a little bit more cutting. You can see moving the arc around. The cut diameter is very nice. Let me rephrase, the cut width is very nice. And it actually is cutting really smooth. This is a great little machine. Now what I'm going to do is grab a straight edge and try to make a straight cut at the end of my material so that I can get rid of this mess that I made, and we'll have a nice clean cut for the next time we need to use this piece of sheet metal. Something that I'd like to point out on this guard, which is kind of nice, is you can use this to follow a straight edge, and it's also really convenient that it keeps your arc the distance away from the material that it needs to be to cut properly. So I'm going to use this guard to drag across my straight edge, and we'll see what kind of cut we get. You can see, except for my little mistake at the end, that's a really nice straight cut. I'm really enjoying this thing. I should have bought one a long time ago, and I appreciate YES Welders for sending me this to try it out. Now what I'm going to do is grab some thick stuff, and we'll see how it does cutting a thicker material. What I have now is a piece of 1/4 inch flat stock mild steel. So we're going to come in here and we're going to up our amperage to, say, about 45. Everything else will stay the same. Let's see how it cuts. No joke, it cut right through it. I'm going to make one more. Just like that. Minimal slag. I'd also like to point out that I have this clamped to a table with a set of vice grips, and my work clamp is on the vice grips. No problem having an arc start. It worked perfectly. Everything's still running as it should. Like I said, I like the 2T mode a little bit better. I like being able to let off the trigger and it stop cutting if I need it to. All the connections are made easy. The flow test is easy. It's hot in here. Sweating already. It's about 90 degrees here in North Carolina. So let's talk a little bit about value. The YES Welder CUT-65DS on their website sells for $4.99. Now I have a Miller at the house that I use to do floorboards in my Packard. This one was a lot cheaper. I bought mine used for about $800. So value, yeah, it's a great value. It cuts well. I'm unsure of the duty cycle limits on it. If I had a lot of cutting to do, I would try to test that out, but I just have some scrap laying around. I wanted to test this machine. As far as user-friendly, it's really user-friendly. The instructions are not the best, but hopefully this video will help you out in setting up the machine, and then you can tweak settings here and there for what you're cutting, your specific needs. So guys, check out YES Welder. They contacted me through Instagram. They have a huge Instagram following. Also, they sell TIG welders, MIG welders, helmets, supplies. They sell everything on their website. They're easy to contact through Instagram, real friendly people, and a great company to deal with. So thank you, YES Welder, for sending me this guy. It is definitely going to get some use around here at RPM Motorsports. So I'm up here about 50 hours a week. That thing will probably get used all the time. Be sure you check them out, guys. I'll put links in the description below for this specific machine, their Instagram, how you can follow them, and see more cool TIG welding, cutting, torching, all the stuff that they offer. And don't forget, guys, follow me on Instagram. I'll post up more about this plasma cutter as I use it more and more. Thank you guys for watching. Another review video coming your way soon. We'll see you next time.